property or a piece of ground and not fertilize right next to it, and the deer will just mow down that fertilized stuff. But I look at some of this stuff out here, there's all kinds of deer food, but once it gets to a certain stage, a woody stage, it's not as easy for the deer to eat and digest, and they'll quit. But brush hog, lots of places right in here would do lots and lots of good. And it's bottomland, and even on dry years the vegetation grows, and it'll grow so high in 1 year that you can actually have deer walking out in front of you and you can't see them. Maybe you'll see an ear or might see an antler, but what I have to do is I've learned you can go in and you can just brush hog certain areas. I believe in South Texas they call them senderos, and it does two things. One is that it cuts that vegetation down to where it's more palatable to a deer, and two, they will walk in that unmowed area or in that mowed area, and it puts them where you can see them. Like you take this area right here, let's say you had a tree stand right there. You keep this mowed, you mow a strip out through there, and you mow a strip out through there. When that vegetation gets high, those deer will walk out in that mowed area.
Oh yeah.
And it puts them in your shooting lane.
Right.
Plus it gives them more access to their food. In Oklahoma, deer survive with three things, and that's winged elm, greenbrier, and what's the third one? Sumac. If you provide those three things in the wintertime, the browse, your deer are going to be fine. You know, if you don't do supplemental year-round feeding, if you have those three things, and that's what brush hogging does. All three of those are a woody species, and once they get so big, the deer can't eat them anymore. So by mowing or even disking or burning, you keep that new growth there.
Okay.
And it works really good. What I like to do is like an area like this right here with all this, you know, this growth starting to get too big, you just go out there and let your brush hog sit about a foot high, 8 to 10 inches high, and you mow that. You don't mow it slick like a golf course, you mow it up high, and that'll provide that new growth that deer just love. Especially, I don't see any sumac right now, but what'll happen is another 2 years, all these big hickories and oaks are going to get big enough that you're not going to be able to brush hog them. You're going to lose this little pasture.
Right.
Yeah, we've got sumac is really good stuff for deer. It's not really good for much else, but when you keep that mowed and you keep that new luscious growth, all the deer love it, and that's what gets them through the winter. You know, that's another thing that I preach to deer hunters is, you know, if you're going to feed, you need to feed year-round. You don't start feeding in September and quit the last day you deer hunt. You're really not doing anything there but baiting, and to me, there's a big difference between baiting and feeding. But if you go in there and mow that growth down and provide that browse through the winter months, January, February, March, that's the critical months for deer. In Oklahoma is January, February, and March. Usually April, May, the new growth's coming up. You know, January, your acorns are gone, persimmons are gone, all that stuff's gone. And that's the critical months to keep those deer healthy. The does are all pregnant during that time of year. You know, the mature bucks are trying to recover from the rigors of the rut. That's when you'll save your deer. You know, if you really want to feed, January, February, March is when you need to put the feed out. Every one of those will make a seed, and that is dove food right there, those seeds. What I was going to tell you was you can come in here in middle of August. Every one of those, see that big seed right there? You can come in an area like that that's got full of this croton, and you can brush hog that down, and even then come back in and disc that seed in. It makes a great habitat for doves. You can actually come in on some of these properties like this and have some really fun dove hunting. You know, you come in here, you dove hunt for a couple hours, then go work on your deer blinds and your food plots. It's kind of an added bonus that a lot of people don't realize. Growing up, I've killed tons of doves. I've killed more doves over croton fields than I ever have crop fields, because where I grew up there wasn't any crops.
Yeah.
But you find some farmer that went out there and he just brush hogged, and then especially if they disc it or burn it, that's the best. But you can have some really good dove shoots over just a brush hog croton field. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people call that bloodweed for obvious reasons, but yeah, that produces a seed too. That I can see a little bit of the seed pods, and yeah, that any of those things that produce seed like that would be good dove plants. But that's the common name for that is bloodweed because of the red stalks. But that's another good another good food. And you know, it all works together. Usually, if you're managing your property for deer, you're beneficial to everything else. Same thing, you know, I know some guys that have might have a waterfowl unit on their deer hunting property, and you know, you would think, well, if they flood that's going to run all the deer out. It doesn't. It just provides a different type of habitat.
Right.
You know, turkeys love to roost over water. You can kind of help your turkeys out sometimes.